we don't know what's coming, what's going to happen next. We don't know how it's going to make us feel unless we're intentional. We do get to choose how we respond. Are we moody or are we in the mood? Are we ready? Let's discuss it next.
Welcome to the Educators Among Us podcast, where we share motivational messages and inspiring stories for and about educators. Your host, Scott Barron, is author of the critically acclaimed book, Love 'Em and Lead 'Em, and provides powerful insights and wisdom for those who heed the call to teach, coach, lead, and serve at all levels of education.
This is Scott Barron, and I'm honored to be your host for the Educators Among Us podcast, where we get to share insights, perspective, and hopefully a little joy for those who answer the call at all levels of education, regardless of your role and the how long you've been doing it or where you're doing it, the age group you're serving. It doesn't matter. You make a difference, and your influence actually changes lives in more ways than you might ever imagine. And we're so thankful for the commitment that you have to this work, because it's hard work. It requires a lot of persistence. It requires a lot of patience. And of course, that ability to be able to sustain that perspective through all the tribulations and the trials that come with it. And this week particularly, we are reflecting on some of those trials and tribulations. You know, as we're going through some of those moments, it's sometimes hard to remember what we're doing and why it matters and how our influence really does make a big difference in people's lives, right? And you know, Walt Disney once said, you may not realize it when it happens, but a kick in the teeth may be the best thing in the world for you. Right. And so this week, we've had the chance to help out and actually kind of communicate with and try to find now a path of recovery for lots of friends and family that were caught in Hurricane Helene. And it's been a challenge, things that have happened from the coast all the way to the mountains, right? I mean, how this hurricane was as destructive in the mountains as it was on the coast, right? When it just tore through and the rain and it wouldn't stop, right? It wouldn't stop. And of course the vast devastation, it's still being discovered even now as we're trying to find out kind of where things are, where people are, and hopefully we'll be able to recast these communities and help them find a new way forward, right? And that's because, you know, when the phone service was out and the power was out, I mean, I couldn't find my mother or my sister or our family and their friends, and it was hard, right? And sometimes in those moments we wonder why, right? But you know, now's the time they have to start figuring it out. They have to figure out a new way of life. They've got to figure out as well how to see and even take advantage of new opportunities for ministry, right? That's part of of what happens in these moments. And so often during these times, emotions can kind of overwhelm us. You know, and this of course, there's a fear that comes with that. There's a wonder. There's also just sometimes that fear can shut us down, and that's a danger, of course, because it causes us to lose perspective and lose the opportunity to still make a difference. And so we'll use these times as a chance to check ourselves and to refocus, right? Because as Lisa Feldman Barrett once said, emotions that, you know, they seem to happen to us, right? Emotions seem to happen to us, but if you look at the research, and I've got a link in our weekly encouragement for educators that we've shared that has a link to her TED Talk, right? Those emotions are actually made by us. Right. And it's a different way of thinking. But if you look at the research, the emotions are things that we create. They're not things that are external, they're internal, and they're choices. right? And that's a very distinct, ability of the most effective educators is they make wise choices when it comes to their emotions, right? We elevate our current reality and future possibilities when we consciously and consistently shift our minds. We shift our minds from anxiety and uncertainty to willful determination. Right? In other words, we're not allowing these things to overwhelm us. We're instead choosing to redefine them, to see them through a new lens. Intelligent people, they develop the life-changing ability to focus their emotional energy. They're able to focus. In other words, they understand how to get their butterflies flying in formation. I love that line from Lisa Feldman Barrett, right? When we're able to get our butterflies into formation, when we're able to line them, to get them into a pattern that's of benefit, we're not allowing these things to happen to us, but instead we're choosing our mood. And sometimes we use the term moody, and it can describe someone who's somewhat unpredictable in their behavior and their emotions. And that is not true of the most effective educators. They are intentional. They get their butterflies flying in formation. Right? And such emotional mastery, it enhances our ability to learn. It enhances our ability to adapt within the dynamic, the ever-changing educational environment. We know that school happens, and we have to have that ability to take those situations and convert them into something that's better. Just like the people in throughout the Southeast are having to do even this fall. This is not the way they planned on things to happen. I mean, in Asheville, North Carolina, they were ready to show off the leaves and have all the tourists come into town, and they weren't expecting to have to rebuild their roads and their buildings and their lives, right? But when we're able to do that, when we're able to master our emotions, well, we're able to then maximize our influence with others, right? So it's a great quote from Shannon Adler that says, feelings are something you have, not something that you are, right? That ability to transform pain from a place to linger instead into a platform to launch, right? That elevates our perspective. That changes things. It opens doors to possibilities that otherwise we wouldn't see them. Otherwise they would be obscured, right? So no one can predict. Nobody has the ability to predict what's going to happen. We watched the weather forecast. We were diligently, before the hurricane arrived, we were watching because we saw where it was going to hit in Florida, and we were praying that it would not cause damage there. And then as it went on through, we were watching all the forecasts, the different directions it was going to go, and some people ended up kind of being fairly accurate, different models, and others were way off, right? Nobody has the ability to predict what's going to happen to us in the daily adventures of school and of life. We don't have that ability. It wasn't given to us, right? But we don't get to decide what happens to us, but we do get to decide what happens in us. Right? That's a choice. And every day we get to make that choice. And that is what most powerfully distinguishes those who sustain their influence, those who sustain their impact, and they sustain their integrity. Right? So that ability to consciously make those decisions of not allowing what happens to us to be determinate, but instead staying true to who we are. Understanding our mission, our values, and our goals collectively as a school, as an educational institution, wherever we are, but also within us. Knowing who we are, knowing where we're going, and having that determination, right? Allowing us to not be changed by all the things happening to us, but choosing to control what's happening in us. So wisely make your emotions this week, my friend. choosing to be in the mood and the mindset for excellence, because that's how we change lives, right? And thank you. Thank you for your commitment to that life-changing work of an educator, right? And sometimes we have people who respond back and say, man, I really needed that today. We're going through this, sometimes they're going through a personal tragedy. I even got an email this week from someone who said, we're dealing with a very hard emotional situation, a family situation where someone's dying. And it's, they've been suffering through a disease that is just awful. And as they were sitting there by the bed, they were able to use some of that inspiration as fuel for their perspective and for their mood and for their energy. And that's what we do. I mean, we get to love students and families and colleagues through life, through marriage and divorce, and through birth and through death and through sickness and through healing and life. Right. And so we have to be ready. We have to have that intentionality that enables us to sustain our influence in order to love and lead people, because that's the calling of an educator, is to be ready in those moments. And that requires, of course, us to have, that commitment to get our butterflies in formation, right? So a coaching question to think about as you're going through this day and this week: did I do my best to master my mood today? Did I do my best to master my mood today? Love him and lead him, my friend. This is Scott.
Thank you for joining us for the Educators Among Us podcast and for your courageous commitment to this noble calling. We get you and the challenges of this work. To stay connected with this community, be sure to subscribe to our podcast and weekly encouragement at educatorsamongus.com.